Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Ford.
My name's Lisa McIntosh.
We're here from Advocates for Basic Legal Equality, here to talk about the rights of students with disabilities in K-12 education. So our goals for this presentation are that you'll learn about the rights of students with disabilities and their parents in public schools, and learn how to get help from ABLE if you need it. At a basic level, all children in the United States have a right to enroll in school, to fair discipline, to not be discriminated against because of their disability, race, ethnic background, national origin, religion, sex, or LGBTQIA+ status. Children also have the right to be timely evaluated and receive special education services, to receive reasonable accommodations for their disabling conditions, and if they are limited English proficient, to receive translation or interpretation for themselves and their parents, and to English learner instruction. ABLE's work in education. Lisa and I work on a team called the Children's Education Team. We work exclusively for low-income people, and all of our services are 100% free to our clients. Our team works exclusively to protect the rights of students and parents in public schools. Students with disabilities have particular rights in American public schools. Under federal law, all students with disabilities are entitled to a free, appropriate public education. What schools are required to provide depends on, basically, what a child needs to participate in their education. This could usually include an IEP or 504 plan. But in general, we should be thinking, what does a child need to participate just like their non-disabled peers? Some things that allow kids to participate in school include accommodations and modifications. These are changes to either the curriculum or the school environment to make things fit those child's needs. These could be, for instance, working with a calculator, using larger print text, having a designated reader if you struggle with reading who can speak written language to you, or to sit close to the teacher. Children have a right to special education from ages 3 to 21 years old, and schools have an affirmative obligation to seek out children with disabilities so that they can provide services to them. This applies both to traditional public schools and charter schools in Ohio. Children must be provided specially designed instruction to meet their unique needs. Students with disabilities are also entitled to related services that are required to allow them to participate in their education, and these needed to be provided to the parent at no cost. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned specially designed instruction, which is required to be provided to children with disabilities. This means instruction that is designed to address the unique needs of the child that result from the child's disability, and to ensure access to the child to the general education curriculum so that the child can meet the educational standards of the school district that apply to all children. Related services that a child might need to participate in their education include things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech-language therapy, and transportation. Anything that a kid needs so that they can fully participate in their schooling. I'll hand it off to Lisa to talk about how the special education process moves forward.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some red flags that as a parent you might see and might trigger your request for special education. If you get routine calls from the school saying you need to pick up your child early because they're either acting out or your child is saying they don't feel well. You find out that your child is spending time in the hallway, they're spending time in the office, they spend their day with the janitor, they're not in the classroom where they should be. Your child's behavior changes. They don't want to go to school. We call it meltdowns. Their sleep or their appetite changes. You find out that the teacher isn't giving your child as much work as other children their age. For example, your child gets fewer spelling words to learn a week. Your child is having a hard time finishing their work at school and is spending a lot of time at home trying to do homework that really isn't homework. It's work that should have been completed by the school day. during the school day, or you get an actual diagnosis from a medical provider. So let's talk about the process. As Taylor said, that the school has an affirmative duty to identify children who have a disability, and a parent, the opposite of that is a parent can actually request an evaluation. And that request for an evaluation we're going to talk about, but that request for an evaluation needs to be in writing. It needs to be given to the school principal. We encourage parents to take a picture of their request so they have proof that they did it. Everybody's got a phone now, so we can take a request, take a picture of that, and you have proof. A school has 30 days from the time your written request is put in writing for an evaluation to say if yes, they're going to do an evaluation, or no, they're not going to do an evaluation. They say yes, they're going to do an evaluation. They're going to go over a long list of all of the evaluations that they can do, and you're a part of that decision. I'm going to talk a little bit about what kind of evaluations can be done. After they have 60 days to do those evaluations, they're going to have you come back in, and they're going to go over that evaluation with you. If your child is found eligible for services, they were going to provide a IEP, and there'll be a separate meeting to draft that IEP. And your child's IEP is going to identify goals and services that your child needs, and then they're going to implement that IEP. So there's a clock that starts ticking the minute you turn in your written request for an evaluation. 30 days to tell you if they're going to evaluate or not. And if they say no, they're not going to evaluate, you do have rights. If they say yes, they're going to evaluate, then there's 60 days. Within 90 days from your written request, you should have an evaluation completed by the school, a written evaluation that tells you what your child's needs are. I'll talk a little bit about what to do if they say no, they're not going to evaluate. So if they do the evaluation and they say, yes, your child has a disability in one of the eligibility categories and your child needs specialized instruction. Specialized instruction can look like a pull-out in the room at the table. It can be a pull-out out of the classroom. We're going to talk about that in a second. The IEP, like I said, has to be done in 30 days. If they say your child's not eligible for an IEP, you can disagree, and you have options that you can do yourself, or you can ask someone like Abel to help you with. You can also request what's called an independent educational evaluation. In special education world, there's a lot of acronyms, and that one stands for IEE. It's where you go out and find a provider to do the same evaluations or similar evaluations that the school did. And then it's at public expense, so the school district pays for that evaluation. You can also ask for what's called a 504, Section 504 plan. It requires to have a diagnosis, and then services and accommodations can be provided through the 504 plan for your child. We're going to talk a little bit about the 504 in a little bit. I want to talk specifically about early intervention services. This is for kids who are birth to age 3. They get those services usually through Help Me Grow. They have what's called an IFSP. There's those acronyms again, but that's an individualized family services plan, and it's to assist children, help children who have developmental delays, and those services are provided in the child's home. Help Me Grow then would work with you to develop that plan and get those services into your home. They could be physical therapy, it could be OT, it could be speech therapy, and it can be play therapy. Most of those services are free. Some parents get their speech and OT and PT through medical services, like at Dayton Children's, but there's also through Help Me Grow, and those services are done in the home.
Okay, So that will bring us to school discipline. I'm going to talk a little bit about school discipline generally so that we can understand the particular special rights that apply to students with disabilities. So for a school to discipline a student, there has to be a code of conduct that specifies what students are not allowed to do. Students may be punished for conduct that occurs off of school property if it's connected to school activity and it interferes with school functions, and it's directed at a school employee's property, or another student. So what are the types of discipline that we're talking about here? The most minor would be a short-term removal. This is when a school calls a parent and says, your child has to go home for the rest of the day. Usually this leads to the child being allowed to return tomorrow, but sometimes it can roll into longer-term forms of discipline, such as suspension or expulsion. The suspension is when a child is removed from a school for 10 days or less, and an expulsion is when a child is removed for 10 days or more. You might be suspended for something like smoking, violating the dress code, or fighting, while expulsion is generally reserved for more serious offenses like possession of drugs or alcohol, possession of a firearm, or fighting at school. So in general, all students, regardless of whether or not they have a disability, have rights in discipline at school. They have a right to school policy, which lays out what behavior can lead to suspension or expulsion, notice regarding discipline and meetings on discipline, a right to participate in fair hearings regarding school discipline. And when I say fair hearings there, I mean it should align with our basic notions of fairness, right? So if, for instance, a school staff member has been harmed by a student, they shouldn't be the person making the decision about whether or not that student should be suspended or expelled. Finally, students have a right to appeal, first to the superintendent, then to the school board, then to the common pleas court for suspensions and expulsions. Some exceptions apply to these rules for very serious violations. There are also some particular protections for youngest children. If you're getting into a situation where you're struggling to figure out the law there, that's the time to involve an attorney. So students with disabilities have particular rights around school discipline. Students should not be disciplined for conduct that is caused by their disability or that is caused by the school's failure to follow a plan for a disability. Now this could look like many different things. So for instance, a student with autism who experiences a sensory overwhelming experience and starts to have a meltdown over that, they shouldn't be punished for that because it's not that they're doing it because they're a bad kid, but they're doing it because of their disability and how it's impacting them. Similarly, a school might recognize that a particular person has an ability to calm down or de-escalate a student with a disability when they become highly agitated. They might make a plan that says, when Timmy has a really bad day, we need to involve Mr. Smith because Mr. Smith is the best person to calm him down. But if a school decides we don't need to call Mr. Smith today, we'll just let whoever's in the room handle it, then that would not be following the plan for the student's disability, and the school would then not be able to discipline the student as a result of their actions. Further, if a school does decide that a student with a disability is going to be disciplined, is going to be suspended or expelled, they may have to continue educational services like specially designed instruction or therapy like physical therapy or speech language therapy while the student is removed from school. Finally, even students who have not been prior identified as needing special education may be able to assert these rights when the school is on notice that they should be receiving special education. Finally, we want to touch on some other educational issues that impact both students with disabilities and without that ABLE might be able to assist you with. First, bullying, including cyberbullying. In serious cases where a student's education is being impacted, if a student is being impacted by discrimination, say on the basis of their race, sex, or gender, and that could be from either other students or from school staff, if they're being excluded from activities, that might be something that ABLE could assist with. And finally, truancy is another thing that we want to flag here. We see this regularly causing problems for families in our area. We want to highlight the importance of documenting excused absences with notes and maintaining those records to protect yourself. If you have further questions about the rights of students with disabilities in public education, we encourage you to contact ABLE and apply for assistance. Thank you for your time.